Hello everyone. This is Conversations with a Doula, and my name is Rebecca Konasek, and I'm going to give it a few minutes for people to join us today. I will tell you a little bit about the program that I work for and what I do while we're waiting for those to join us live. But my name is Rebecca Konasek, and I am a doula and enrollment supervisor for Shawnee's Healthy Families program. We work in Jackson, Perry, Franklin, and Williamson counties with mainly first-time moms during pregnancy. We offer free home visiting services and doula services for women during pregnancy and in their early parenting years. The only requirement to be in our program is that you live in one of our counties and that you are eligible for WIC. And so that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to use WIC, but that you are eligible to receive WIC, and we always encourage it. Hi, Emma. So I'm gonna give it just one more minute. I'm a little bit late today, I apologize. We're having some issues with the water at our office, and so I was kind of trying to read some emails and I kind of lost track of time. But today's topic is gonna be ideas and tips and tricks on how to soothe a fussy or crying baby. I noticed that I've spent a lot of time in some previous videos talking about things to do during pregnancy and labor and delivery. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what to do with the baby afterwards, because it can be a really challenging time physically and emotionally for new parents, and especially with a fussy baby. So I wanted to kind of talk about some tips and tricks that have been shared with me over the years. I'm definitely by no means an expert on any of this. In fact, I'm kind of brushing up on some things as I get close to the end of my own pregnancy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So some of the stuff that I'm kind of referencing from, hey Tarina, is from The Happiest Baby on the Block, which is by Harvey Karp, who's a pediatrician. This book was given to me by my cousin actually when I was pregnant with my first baby. And I found it really helpful personally. My first child was a little more fussy and challenging to soothe at times. It was my first child, so of course I'm just a new parent to begin with, and I was pretty young. So I found it extremely helpful. Couldn't have done it without that book, honestly. My second baby was a little more easy to soothe. I don't know if I just had more tips and tricks in my pocket that time around, or if, you know, his personality was just easier meshed with mine. But it was useful for both circumstances regardless. So some tips and tricks for soothing a fussy baby. The first thing I want to clarify is that all babies do cry. You know, there's nothing necessarily wrong with your child. It's the way that they communicate. If you are concerned because your baby's fussy or crying and you think something bigger is going on, definitely reach out to your pediatrician. If you need to take them to the hospital, or like a clinic or something to get some reassurance, do it. Because, you know, you might just need to know what's normal for your child. So never be afraid to reach out for help if you do think something does seem wrong. But all babies do cry. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anything is going on. So main reasons why babies are gonna cry, of course, hunger. That's kind of the first thing everyone thinks of. Oh, my baby's just hungry, they try to feed them. Definitely think about not getting stuck on a schedule and a really strict routine with babies right away. I'm a very type A, controlling routine type person, and this was really hard for me. I expected my kid to eat every 3 hours. It just doesn't work that way. Babies are growing and they're changing. They might need more food today than they do tomorrow. They might need more food this week than they do tomorrow. We're adults, we're not growing, we're maintaining our bodies, so we eat kind of the same amount of food each day at really structured times, and we like babies to fit into that, and it just doesn't always work that way. So my kind of advice would be to sort of adjust your feeding to just being on cue and on demand for what your child is telling you that they need, versus stressing yourself over, well, they just ate 2 hours ago and so they shouldn't be hungry right now. If they're telling you that they're hungry, go ahead and try and feed them and see if that's what's going on. Diaper change, that's a big one. Babies are fussy because they're wet or because they've pooped. Some kids couldn't care less if they have a poopy diaper, and some kids will immediately cry the second they poop. So, know your kid and what they need for that. Or maybe they have like a diaper rash or something going on that's causing some discomfort. They want to be held, they're lonely, they want to kind of feel that physical touch. That's definitely a big one for my kids in particular. Sometimes they just really wanted to be close to me and wanted to be held. Baby wearing is really helpful for this, or going back skin to skin. Take off your shirt. Dads can take off their shirt, baby shirt, get back skin to skin and just hold your baby. There's really nothing more comforting than that. They're gassy or they're uncomfortable because of the temperature. They're hot, they're cold. Most people kind of know their baby runs hot or cold, and so just kind of making sure that they're comfortable. If they're gassy, you can wiggle their little legs around, change their position, put some pressure on their belly, help them get up a burp, those kinds of things. So that's kind of like the basic 101. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Do they need a diaper change? Are they uncomfortable? Those are kind of the first things you try. But say you try all those things and the baby's still fussy, still crying, and you can't seem to soothe them and nothing's working. You can get really frustrated really quickly in these situations because you just want to help them and you can't understand what they need. So this book talks about the 5 S's. The idea behind the 5 S's is that you're imitating what it's like for the baby to be in the womb. So when babies are inside you in your belly, of course they're not throwing a tantrum and freaking out and kicking and punching and uncomfortable. They're pretty satisfied. They're just hanging out in there. They've got a continuous food line going in. They're nice and snuggled up. What they know is what they know, and they don't know anything else. So your idea whenever a child's born is that you want to try to imitate the womb because it's what they're comfortable with and what they know. And the book talks a lot about this and kind of the research behind it. But the 5 S's are all related to what it's like for a baby in the womb. So swaddle, side and stomach, shushing, swinging, and sucking are the 5 S's. And so these are 5 things that help soothe a fussy baby. So swaddling is kind of self-explanatory. The things I want to point out is that there's a million different kinds of swaddles. So reach out for what you think is going to be the best thing for your child specifically, and do it the way that you think your child needs it. Trust your instincts. You know your child best. There's like little zipper pods that are kind of like one piece, like basically like an amniotic sac that would go up to the neck. They zip up and they're all wrapped up in there so they can still move around, but they're still nice and snug. They feel secure. Some of the Velcro swaddles, people will leave their arms out and they'll swaddle the baby, and so it's kind of just like their core that's wrapped up and snug, so they feel safe, but maybe they like to have their hands by their mouth or their head, and they sleep with their hands behind their head. So just kind of know what your baby needs and likes and try to find a swaddle that might fit their needs. I have parents all the time tell me their kid hates swaddling. That very well might be true. Both of my kids loved it. So my options are just usually like, just try some different kinds before you completely discount it, because typically babies like to be held and be close and feel tight and snug. The side or the stomach. So of course I want to caution people, you should always put your baby to sleep on their back to prevent SIDS. That's a straight up AAP recommendation. But you can hold your baby on their stomach or on their side. You can lay a baby on your own belly and kind of have them on chest to chest with you. Or you can hold them on their side. One way that my own OB actually taught me to hold a baby versus kind of like this, which you do kind of hold them on their side sometimes like this, especially if they're feeding. But kind of switching them to the outside where you're kind of supporting their head with your fingers kind of around by their ears, and you have your forearm across their, whole entire front of their body. And so you can kind of hold them like this, and you're putting pressure on their belly this way with your arm, which can help get some gassy bubbles out. And then you can kind of pat them on their back and rock and burp them, and you can shush them at the same time and move around a room. And this is a really secure way for kids to be held. And babies are really used to being, kind of upside down inside your body. They're used to being in an amniotic fluid. There's really no gravity in their life. So gravity's new to them. So if you can kind of get them sideways or kind of twisted and turned in unique ways, they actually might be more comfortable than you'd think. So that's one way. And of course, if you want to lay your baby on their side or their stomach and you're awake and watching them and they fall asleep and take a nap that way and you're keeping an eye on it, I always feel like that's different than if you're all sleeping in the house. So shushing goes along with like white noise, that really loud, shh sound. So people buy these machines that can play that in their bedroom, or you can just make the shushing sound yourself. You can do it in a rhythmic way or a constant way. You can kind of get really up close to their ear and do this. Inside your body is actually really loud. So when they're in your womb, they're used to sound. They're used to hearing and feeling the rhythm of your voice. So definitely try that one. A lot of kids will kind of quiet down when they hear that shushing. Supposedly your uterus sounds as loud as a vacuum cleaner. So it's pretty significant. Swinging, so any sort of rhythmic jiggling motion, whether it's using a swing, a bouncer, vibrations, bouncing a baby like this, walking around, putting them in a stroller, putting them in the car, like whatever your child finds soothing, try it and use it. And then of course sucking. So they can suck on a bottle, a pacifier, a finger, a nipple, whatever you decide to use, you can offer. So some kids might only need one of these things. Some kids, you pop a pacifier in their mouth and they're totally fine. But some kids, you need to do all 5 of these, in a very specific way in order for them to soothe. So some kids are just a little more difficult to calm down and a little bit harder to get to know. And some kids are a little more laid back and mellow, but all kids are gonna cry and respond to these in different ways. And so you kind of have to trial and error and figure them out. But this is a lot more options to try versus just feeding or changing a diaper whenever your baby's fussy. Babies are born immaturely. Other animals are born and they can immediately walk and run around. Humans are a little bit different. We take a couple months to really develop. And so, thinking about that and kind of showing some compassion and empathy for your child is really important. When a baby's 2 or 3 months old, it's totally different. They're smiling at you and they're laughing and a lot more coordinated with things. But a newborn baby is really very helpless. And so, you kind of have to think about these things in a different way. They need a little bit more from you. The book talks about like the 4th trimester and how like really babies need more time inside our womb to like develop fully and have more brain development. But if they grew anymore, they wouldn't fit. And I think anyone who is pregnant like me and 9 months is long enough, and we wouldn't want them inside us any longer anyways. But really, if their brains grew any bigger, their heads any bigger, it would be a lot harder for them to fit out. So that's why they're born when they're born, and they're a little more immature and require a little more attention than other mammals do. So the last thing I want to talk about is just some of the emotional impacts of these things. Fussy babies can be really, really difficult to handle, especially if you're sleep deprived and you're healing and you're sore and you're adapting to this new baby being in your home and your lifestyle is completely changed. A lot of your self-care techniques are out the window because you're so focused on just taking care of this child, especially with COVID. There's a lot less, interactions with other people in our lives. So keep your mental health as, held high as your physical health. It's really important to remember that. And so I ask you to just think about who you're going to turn to if you are struggling. Is it your partner, the baby's dad? Is it your friend? Is it your sister? Is it your brother? Is it your uncle? Is it your grandma? Is it your mom? Like, think about the people in your life that you find supportive and helpful. And think about who you might call if you're really feeling frustrated or if you're really feeling emotionally exhausted or depressed or anxious. Who is it that you think would be helpful to you that you would call? And maybe you just need to call them and vent, or maybe you want to call and really talk through some ideas of what else you can try to calm your baby down. Maybe you're dealing with colic or something like that and you're just really struggling. And so think about who you kind of want advice from and who you wouldn't, and sort of keep that in your head. Maybe talk to your partner about who those people are so that they kind of know who to reach out to on your behalf. Because it can be really hard to find the motivation to reach out to those people if you are in a depressed state or struggling with postpartum anxiety. It's really difficult and it's really, really common. And I think it's getting a little more attention than it used to. People are talking about postpartum depression and anxiety, but I still don't think it's enough. And I really still want to highlight it because I think it's really important. to normalize that it's okay to reach out for help, and that parenting is really, really hard, and you don't have to just be like, oh, everything's great and I'm so grateful and everything's perfect. It's difficult, and there's days that go really well and there's days that don't go so well. So think about who your people are and who you'll reach out to, and also know that you will get a lot of advice in response sometimes. And it's okay to tell people, I do not want to hear your advice on what you think my baby needs. You know, I really just need to talk to you about what I'm struggling with without getting any feedback, to kind of just have a sounding board. You know, people will talk about spoiling a lot. That's like a really like buzzword, is like, oh, you don't want to spoil your baby. Like they want you to hold your baby and love your baby, but then, oh, but if they're sleeping, you shouldn't hold them, and all these different things. So with healthy families, we definitely promote bonding and holding babies and parent-child interactions. We do not believe it's possible to spoil an infant. The research supports that as well. So, you know, it's okay to brush aside people who say things like that to you, and even to correct them. But I just like to warn people that that is definitely common. But just think about how, you know, a crying baby is making you feel, and name those feelings. Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel like you're failing? There's nothing worse than feeling like you cannot help your child. You know, when they're clearly struggling and they're crying and you're so tired. It's really tough. So acknowledge that, and you know, be okay asking for help in those situations. And if you're feeling like it's postpartum depression or anxiety, or it's all of it combined, definitely reach out to a medical provider. So you can reach out to your OB, your midwife, you know, any like women's health clinic. Even if you're past the 6 or 8 weeks postpartum, it doesn't matter. Those clinics are still there to help you. So, you know, you're still a patient, even if you're not pregnant or postpartum. So reach out to them and talk to them about what's going on. Reach out, you know, see if you want to get a referral to counseling, to have someone to talk to that way. Right now, there's a lot of virtual things available for people, and that's really helpful, I think, for someone with a new baby, because you have a little bit more, you know, availability to just be home to talk to someone for an hour, versus trying to find someone to watch your kid so you can go to an appointment or something. So, you know, reach out. You can also talk to your primary care physician. That's always an option. You know, even just talking to a friend or someone and seeing what they've done or dealt with in the past. So, this is definitely something that some people know, like, you're not alone. It's very normal, you know, and kind of have a plan in place now, maybe during your pregnancy, so that you have ideas of who you'll reach out to if these things happen to you, because, you know, there's no discrimination with depression and anxiety, especially postpartum. It affects people from all walks of life. So definitely just have a plan in place. Take a break, give yourself some space sometimes, go outside, go for a walk. That's actually a good way to sometimes soothe the crying baby as well. But just kind of know who you can count on, and know that it's okay to also put a crying baby down sometimes and just walk away if you feel like you're kind of at your breaking point. So that's all. I just wanted to cover that today. Make sure you guys felt like you had some resources available to you. Thank you, Stephanie, for your super kind comment. And hi, Amanda and Fallon as well. So this is actually going to be my last session today, because I'm getting really close to my due date. I just kind of want to wrap things up with this and focus on a couple other things with work for the last 2 weeks I have. So Chastity did a video with me in the past, and she's one of the other doulas on my team, and she's going to be taking this over, and she's going to do videos twice a month. So again, if you guys want to throw out some comments on ideas or topics to cover in the future, we'd really appreciate it. But Chastity will be doing the videos, and it's been a lot of fun doing these. I'll be back probably by October, and I'll probably kind of jump on board with doing this again, and me and Chastity will sort of work together to make a schedule. But I've really enjoyed it, so thank you guys so much. And if any of you are pregnant, good luck with your pregnancies and labors and deliveries and your babies. And everyone, just take care. Thank you.